Trans. Okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, it seems like, as I was saying a little minute ago, that it seems like ages since we were online here. And so I'm glad to see you all back again. I'm sure we have lots of stuff to talk about, but I do need to, give me just a minute here to get rid of this. I do need to just make a quick announcement. I am not as all organized and coordinated as I usually am. As I was telling some folks, my wife is in the hospital, has been for a week, and had a lot of issues going on before that. So I've been a little discombobulated and stressed out. So bear with me today. I appreciate it. So moving on. This meeting is being recorded, as it usually is. I want to thank our sponsors, as always, Care First Health Plan, excuse me, United Way, Valley of the Sun, Khajiit, Triad, and the Satellite Broadcasters Association. And as always, we're looking for some new sponsors this year. So if any of you are interested, please let me know. You can access that information from the website. And I'm also going to be sending out an email, hopefully this week, asking for your help. As always, I want to ask you to fill out our Google form so that we have all of your contact information, and people, I can find you and other people can find you. We have your email, phone number, and all that kind of good stuff. And then just a reminder that as most of you know, that we've been doing our kibitzing with colleagues after our regular meeting. For anybody who wants to join us, it's could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour, depending on what people want to talk about. But there's no recording, there's no presentations, it's just strictly people asking questions, sharing information, and so forth. So hopefully you'll consider joining us to Kibitz for a while. And you can go in and out as you so choose. So anyways, look forward to that, to your participation in that. And let's see, whoops, I forgot to change the date. So hopefully I have a current date. Oops, didn't do this. I apologize. So our next meetings, which I should have them on here. So we'll be meeting as usual every Monday. Did I click that on here? No, I did not. I apologize. I didn't get the current dates up there. But as always, we'll be meeting next Monday, meeting every Monday. And so I look forward to seeing all of you. Okay, why is this not updated? This is weird. Okay, well, just bear with me, folks. I apologize. So let's start as usual with our updates. Jeff, are you online? Jeff, are you there today? Apparently not.
I don't see him.
Okay. So Mala, you want to give us an update? Mala, Holly, and Nicole, if you're online, give us an update. And then later on, Cindy, you and Nicole can do an update about what's happening with the digital inclusion initiatives and so forth.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was having trouble with my headset, so I'm off my headset completely now. So if you hear background noise, please forgive me. I'm sorry to hear about your wife not being well. Hope she gets better soon. um, to get on with what I was going to say. E-rate, they, the whole goal, of course, is to improve connectivity and bandwidth and our affordability and availability. Our application deadline for this year is March 22nd. That is for the year starting July 1, 2022 to June 30th of 2023. So I'm in the throes of working with the libraries to get their applications submitted. Navajo Nation's chapter houses, I'm really happy to report that they are, their build out is going in full swing. We will have many of the chapter houses that received E-rate commitments last year. They will get their connectivity soon. Many of the libraries are very, very close to being turned on. The rest, there are some issues about right-of-way, environment clearances, pole replacement where the poles are old. Some buildings are older and can't need repair before they can do any work with it. So all of that is happening right now, but at least they're not in lockdown and there's work going on. So I'm really happy about that. The Emergency Connectivity Fund, the $7.1 billion, 2 rounds of applications that have happened are being funded now. Most of the libraries that applied for the 12-month funding, libraries and schools, were approved late. So there weren't 12 months available for their funding to take place because the funding was supposed to end with June. Happy to report that after a lot of petitions from different folks, different places, different organizations, FCC has granted the request to extend the ECF to June 30th, 2023. So even if they received a funding late, if there are supply chain issues and they were not able to do it, they have until June 30th for both recurring and non-recurring. That means they can receive their equipment also at that time. And of course, the recurring services, June 30th, 2023. So FCC was paying attention and I'm happy they did. EBB, I think you will have a report from other folk here, Cindy and others, but just to emphasize, today is the last day of the old scheme, that $50 scheme. Now it is from tomorrow. Everyone who had already enrolled as of December 31st will switch over to the new $30 per month. And those that had enrolled from January are already on the $30. They don't have to do anything except if they are concerned about being out of pocket. They would have to contact their service provider to see if either they would reduce their bandwidth to match the price or give them something else, give them some other way of paying their monthly benefit. It's between them and their service provider. The tribal lands, of course, will continue to get the $75, and there is no change to that. Our telehealth project with Pima County is progressing. Ajo and Narwaka libraries are great locations for the pilot, and we're working hard with the health system, the Pima County Health, working with NAU and U of A on getting the students, getting the nurses, getting the schedule set up, purchasing the backpack kits, etc. So it's
Mala, if I can
yes?
interrupt, Mala, if I can interrupt, can you just give people a quickie overview of what that project is? Most
Sure.
people probably know, but just because we do have a lot of new folks and so forth.
Sure. In a nutshell, actually, the state library funded a pilot project to do a telehealth project at the Pima County Public Library. The project is in getting backpack kits as well as the bookmobile with an antenna at the top to go to the rural areas, especially the two libraries that have been selected are Aho and Arivaka libraries. We will have a nurse practitioner available at those two libraries on a schedule. They will have student nurses also available to take the vitals and an iPad if they want to report it to their healthcare providers, if they just need to record it and keep track of it to report back at their next doctor visit, that too is possible. And this is to help those patients who either do not have transportation to go to the hospital or cannot take their vitals at home on their own because they don't have a blood pressure kit or glucometer or whatever. So the backpack actually has a thermometer, glucometer, blood pressure cuff, weigh scale. Um, Also, later on, not right now, we may be able to do other screenings as well, depending on what other equipment is made available. But these can be recorded and transmitted to their in a safe and secure manner through the iPad that the library will be purchasing just for this purpose to connect to their healthcare provider. There were, of course, the libraries can also sign them up with a healthcare provider. If they don't have one, they can go on Obamacare and do it. But again, the student nurses are trained to do all of this, and they will be available on hand to help with the nurses. The reason why I spoke about the bookmobile is also that the bookmobile has an antenna. They can put a tent outside the library. They can actually safely distance and watch a video or healthcare video, nutrition video, exercise, anything that is possible. We just need the connectivity, and we have that. So I is that enough of a summary?
Sure.
Steve. Yeah, okay. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Just want to quickly let you know that FCC has received a lot of responses for the bidding portal because they wanted E-rate bids to go through another portal, a bidding portal, other than the application portal. And there has been a lot of protest about it, taking away the local control of procurement. So there's been a lot of comments that they have received, and they'll have to go through those. The other comment period was for NTIA, the new Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act will go through NTIA. All of the funding will go through, most of the funding, the $42.4 billion for the BEAD program, et cetera, will go through NTIA. So NTIA has requested that people send them comments about what the rules should be. And several organizations have already done that. More than 50 organizations have sent their rules requests to them. The states will get at least 100 million each, and the rest will be distributed on the basis of number of unserved households in each state. And this will be dependent on the FCC maps, unless the state has its own maps. So it's very, very vital that we have good maps, broadband maps, to tell us where exactly the connectivity is. ACA is working on these. Jeff is working with a team on getting these maps done for Arizona so that we are not a prey to FCC's maps. And we are also, the comments that have been sent also is asking for 100 up and 100 down and 20 up for the unserved and underserved areas, so that there is stronger connectivity than just 25.3 that FCC is currently recommending. The project should be shovel ready. So as long as we're working on something and have a project that is ready to go if funded, I think that's what we need to have ready. And the state will be asked to do a 5-year plan, not just to spend this money in 1 year. So we need to think ahead, and we need to think in stages of what can be done at which stage, maybe start somewhere and then continue further on in different places based on our time frame. And NTIA says that grant applications must provide at least a 25% match, and the match can be either the CARES Act funding, ARPA funding, or state match. So all of those are allowable, but we do need to have a 25%, which is a high match, but they are looking for at least a 25% match. They also said that the money could be used for data collection, broadband mapping, planning, all of that. The money funds can be used for that. So those are NTIA's requirements, and lots of comments have gone to them already based on those rules. And those rules are just in a nutshell. There are a lot more, but I won't go into it in depth. You can find it on the NTIA website under the IIJA Act. Back to you, Steve, unless there are any questions.
So Bala and Cindy, maybe this is for you also, and I know you're going to give us some updates here in just a little bit, but you know, NTIA has been having these listening sessions, and I know that Nicole did a presentation, the last one, or you know, submitted some comments. But do we need to? Are there some issues that we should be concerned about, that we should be submitting recommendations, or just let people do their own thing, or it's going okay? Or do you have any thoughts about that?
About whether, say that again, Steve, you wanted comments on what?
So again, NTIA has been holding these listening sessions. And I guess the question is, are there some issues that we should be concerned about, that we should draft some recommendations to send to NTIA? So in addition to the listening sessions, that you can also submit written comments. And so are there any things that you or Cindy, you might have some comments? You guys are probably most knowledgeable about what, you know, where all the stuff's going. Are there any things that we should be submitting some comments about?
If we like, we could as a group, but there are a lot of areas, Steve, on maps, of course, is one, on cybersecurity, because there's been nothing that talks about funding for cybersecurity. There has been nothing about discussion about interoperability. Like, you know, we are doing so many different networks in different areas, like, you know, take for example our I-19 corridor, I-10 corridors, all of those, but to interconnect them and to make them interoperable, I think that is another area that we need to comment on. We do need to emphasize that 100 down, 20 up, if possible, 100 down and 100 up, you know, synchronous, because there's a lot of things that we, for example, the libraries are doing a number of programs that are going to be online. If you're not able to upload and at that speed, and if we're not able to transmit at that speed, we are going to lose our audience. And so for some of it, it's going to be choppy. I mean, if we were to have a book reading session for children, and the broadband speed, upload speed is only 20, it's not, the other person may receive it at 100, but we're not able to upload it at 100. So, you know, those kind of things. Transparency is important about who's doing what and where these lines already are. I think also we need to look at scalability. Today, they may need 120, but tomorrow, is it scalable? Is it going to be fixed at that? Do we have room for it? How are we going to sustain these networks? I mean, there is so much. And is there fail safe? Because, you know, so far redundancy was never considered for E-rate purposes. So we were never able to do any redundancy with E-rate payments. So is NTIA going to allow some of that to happen? those are kind of pole issues. The poles in Arizona, many of them are old, rusty, have not been replaced in a long time. If we're going to do, if in areas that cannot be dug and fiber laid, they're going to be strung on poles. Who's going to keep the poles, maintain the poles? Who's going to make sure that the current ones are replaced if they need replacement? Will those costs be absorbed? I mean, there are 100 issues.
So Steve, I think the answer to your question is yes.
Okay. So
Sorry,
yeah,
yes.
we won't have time to do all that today. Perhaps we need to, so two things were running through my mind. One is that we have a separate meeting and sooner rather than later to draft that. And perhaps a couple of folks, Molly, you and Cindy and others who are fairly knowledgeable can do a straw document that we can then present to folks and have discussion on so we can get this off fairly soon. Does that make sense?
Certainly, yes, we can do it. I thought it would be Jeff who would want to. It should be actually the broadband office, but I'll coordinate with Jeff for you, Steve.
Yeah, well, and it certainly, I mean, doesn't matter to me that, that Jeff actually submits it, or it can be submitted from a number of us, if we can come up with our, what we think are the issues, and then have everybody on task force if they choose to submit. The more, at least in my opinion, the more the merrier, that if they hear stuff that it will make some sense to them. So, I don't know what your thoughts might be about that.
It could go from AZBS and it could go from the Arizona Broadband Office, as long as it is an organization that is sending it and that has people behind it. I think that's what is more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's think about how to best do that, and probably sooner rather than later.
What is the deadline for submittal?
I don't know.
The rulemaking has to be out by June. So I haven't paid attention to the deadline. Let me look it up and I will send it, if possible, while during the meeting.
I can't remember. Is there another listening session coming up soon?
There was one that Shelby did, where we had 3 different organizations do a presentation. ALA was one of them, and I think we had, let me check who are the other 2. There were 3 organizations. ALA did a presentation. An organization called the Quilt that had also submitted. They also did it, and Benton Institute did a presentation. So they've all submitted already, but we can do it. Let me look up the deadline and let you know, hopefully before the close of this meeting.
Yeah, and Mala, if we maybe can steal some of those recommendations from those other organizations.
Absolutely, yes.
Certainly makes sense. Obviously, they've been doing deep dives into this stuff.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I can put those recommendations together for you, Steve.
Sounds great. Thanks, Mala.
No problem.
Okay. Holly, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I think Mala covered it well.
Okay. Nicole, or I don't know if Nicole's online. I don't think so.
Yeah, she just emailed me that she can't get here today.
Okay. All righty. Well, Cindy, in a little while, we'll give you a chance to give us some updates too. But let's move on to the Department of Ed. And Sophia, you have anything that you want to add for Department of Ed? I know we have, excuse me, that we have a couple of other folks from the department who are online.
I don't have any major updates today, but if Kelly has them from the office to go to.
Okay, so Kelly, you have anything that you'd like to add?
Good morning. I don't have any updates yet, but I do want to say that we are getting very close to publishing our data from the assessment that we did. So right now, that is in the stages of being approved, and we're working with our partners at ASU to create a dashboard. So I would think that later in March, I will be making a presentation to share all of those details.
So Kelly, I don't know if you want to comment or not about whether you got enough data to have a good sense of what's happening out there.
We had about 21% of the school districts and charter systems respond, and this was our first attempt. So this gives us a really good baseline of a benchmark of where the state stands. And I have to say that the information that we are receiving is really just affirming what we all already know. And so we have been working hard to reach out and broaden our reach. And I do expect, because this assessment was not a one and done, so there will be more, possibly more this year. And so we know that the numbers will grow, and we'll continue to get more information. And that will really help us as far as tracking KPIs and measuring the metrics and narrowing the gaps.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I skipped her. Janet, I think you were online. Do you want to give us some updates? I know you were part of that presentation, the I-40. Do you want to add anything about that and anything else you're working on?
Thank you, Steve. Good morning, and give my best to Mary.
Thank you.
I really, thoughts and prayers. So I want to share a couple of things. Yes, it was a blast. It was really an honor to participate in the announcement about the I-40 corridor, and Mark shared the press release, and I shared a video that was produced by the Arizona Department of Transportation, and it was really great. I really enjoyed it. It's like a career highlight, right? And I also wanted to share a couple of comments about the Pima County Telehealth and Libraries project. You know, it's been wonderful to work with Ken Zambos, who's the director of the Pima County Libraries, and it's really exciting. He's really embraced this project and has been doing a lot of research and a lot of the groundwork, and he will be meeting with the Pima County Health Department this week, because they do have a mobile health program that goes out and about, and just like the Bookmobile, depending upon where they park, they can now have internet connectivity where they park in some strategic places, and we look forward to working with them as well for part of the project. And also the idea of, you know, incorporating nursing students and interprofessional teams will be a great asset, so that we can do things like a screening day for the community for diabetes, or things that would really serve the community, as well as get the word out that there are these great resources out there to connect people to healthcare. Because of course now we've realized that if you've got technology and you've got connectivity, you've got access to healthcare, and it's just the perfect pilot place to be doing this. So that's a project that I'm really excited to be working on with Mala and with Ken Zambos. The other thing I wanted to mention is there's a wonderful program coming up this Thursday that I'll share in chat, and it's the FCC's Connect to Health Task Force. And they're going to be hosting, and it's several hours long. The agenda is online. I might have to come and go and kind of cherry pick the best speakers, but it's a digital health symposium, advancing broadband connectivity as the social determinant of health. And that's a hot topic right now. And I know that there will be people who would be interested. And I also, last week, I had the opportunity to attend one of Cindy's meetings that Cindy and Nicole hosts for the Digital Inclusion Network. And it was really exciting to catch up with the folks who are so passionate in working on that team. It's evident that I've shared some with many folks from the FCC. They shared a frequently asked questions release that also had sample Twitters and Facebook comments and LinkedIn posts, because as Mala mentioned, it's a big day, March 1st, because the EBB changes its name and some of its criteria and becomes ACT. And this is really important information to share with people. Several things were talked about at the meeting. A lot of folks expressed interest, and I want to follow up on this. Our team's very fortunate because we now have a professional communications person, and she's good. And she's good at editing videos. So I would love to put together a 2 or 3 minute video that covers some of those frequently asked questions and some of the information about the ACT opportunity, because even today I received an email from someone on my mailing list who said, what is this and why have I never heard of it? Well, now's the time to really get the word out there so people know that there's a transition and it's changing names. We have to rebrand everything that's been distributed and let people know that there is a change, but it's still an incredible way to almost write your own scholarship, your own grant for your own family. An update on the grant workshops. The first one was wonderful. The next one is March 8th, and the hot topic is the RUS DLT grants. I had understood that they would be, there'd be another call for DLT grants in the spring. It might not be to the fall, but it's never too soon to start gathering your collaborators and your data to write a successful grant. I've
Janet,
also
if I can interrupt for a second, do you want to tell people what DLT is?
Oh, thank you so much. Distance learning for telehealth. You know, there's a lot of great grants out there right now. Some cover technology and some cover connectivity that they never did. And this is really a great grant opportunity. It does have a match. It is a grant that has been awarded successfully here in Arizona in the past. And I would like to invite everyone to that workshop. And then Mark and Kimber Lanning and Jeff have all agreed to do a Arizona grants, a grant workshop with an Arizona focus. When we can cover federal grants as well, but we really want to promote things that are resources specifically for Arizonans. So we'll hopefully get a date nailed down in April. I'd love to do that in early April, because we will also have yet a third grant workshop for a national audience as well in April. So can't do too many grant writing workshops. Not only to share resources, but to help people with their grant writing skills. And the format has been wonderful because we meet on the Tuesday and on a Thursday. We absolutely follow up with individuals who have really great questions about their grants specifically. And anybody who's working on a grant in telehealth, I sure want to do everything I can to foster that grant writing, the quality of that grant, as well as offer to write a fantastic letter of support for all these great ideas that people have come up with. I think that the creativity has been impressive. And one of my goals in life is absolutely to work with promoting the whole mobile telehealth program, the telehealth and libraries program, and combinations of those two. I'd really like to try and get a directory of mobile units like the Bookmobile, like the Pima County Health Department, the Family Community Medicine Department, North Country Healthcare, Tuba City Regional. There are a lot of mobile units out there, and there are a lot of great resources out there for mobile units. So we sure want to collaborate and help them plan some fantastic activities for the communities that they serve. And that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and cut and paste into the chat this event for this Thursday for anyone who's interested. Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Any questions or comments for Janet? Okay, moving on. I don't believe Leah is on the line, but Derek, I think you are.
I am, Steve. I don't have anything to add to everything my esteemed colleagues have already covered. I mean, it has been a busy, several weeks in broadband, but all the bases have been covered.
So
I-40 is the big thing for us, but
yeah.
anyway.
Well, so just a quickie. Can you do a quickie update on the I-40 and what's happening? And you had was that a ribbon cutting, so to speak, that you?
Yeah, maybe more of a groundbreaking, or I mean, the governor, the governor and the Arizona Middle Mile team made an announcement a week ago Friday that we will be building or adding to the Middle Mile ecosystem that we're already building on 17 and 19. We've committed the funding to build from Flagstaff to the California border along the I-40. So we call that I-40 West. I-40 East is obviously east of Flagstaff over to New Mexico. So the process for getting that work started is underway. We'll be looking for a design firm, potentially a design build firm. We'll see about that. So yeah, no real ETAs yet as to when that network will be functional, but yeah, that's forthcoming.
And then Derek, do you want to mention anything about the Middle Mile study? I know we've talked about it before, but just in terms of updates and maybe what that indicates for some favored or likely next generation middle mile projects?
Sure. So yeah, so the study that the ACA published a couple of weeks ago now did articulate that in terms of middle mile, there would be, there'd be basically highways would be separated into three buckets. One, state-led corridors, and those would be the corridors that the state chooses with its money or money that it has at her discretion to fund and build, on its own broadband corridors. And then there's and that's the I-40 West, right? And the I-17 and I-19 are both state-led as well. And then there's another segment of highways that would be partnered, right? And so we would look for partners to help with the construction costs. And then there's another segment of highways which would be, commercial or carrier-led builds, where maybe the state would broker for capacity once built. But and the I-40 is in the state-led segment. And I mean, the plan does lay out a prioritization matrix for what might come next. And truthfully, you also have to be a little bit opportunistic, right? So probably, the state would prefer to stay in the interstates to build the next segment, and the I-40 East makes a little bit of sense, but if there's right-of-way challenges, or if there's no one to meet at the New Mexico border, then maybe another segment makes sense. So there's still some complicating factors that'll contribute to the actual next segment the state commits to. I think that plan articulated a desire to solicit a commercial partner to help us to commercialize and operate and maintain the state's assets. And there will be a solicitation for that partner forthcoming, hopefully in the next month and a half.
Excellent, sir. Thank you for the update.
Yeah, sure. Happy to.
So Derek, can I ask a question?
Of course.
How much fiber is being laid along I-17 and I-19? And I assume the plan is to lease that fiber to, this fiber that isn't used by the state to various service providers. They don't really see a discussion of that in the plan, as I read it, if I remember.
So what is the strand count, I guess, is really kind of the question.
Yep. So the state will build and own 288 strands of fiber in the initial construction. So the 17, the 19, and the 40 West, we will have 288 strands of fiber.
Wow.
And 6 empty conduit. And so in our conversations with carriers or providers, many of them, particularly the bigger ones that have an interest in these kind of routes, their strong preference is to jet their own fiber into a distinct conduit that they can manage. And so we will have conduit that they can jet their own fiber into. And then we will also be able, per the statute, to trade and swap with the 288 strands of fiber that the state will have control of for either money to continue the program or capacity elsewhere in the state. So 288 is the actual strand count being constructed, but over time, others will add strand count to those routes through the empty conduit that we're putting in the ground. Does that make sense, Henry?
Yeah, I'm understanding it better now. Yeah. So how have they decided on a plan on how they're going to charge service providers to lease the strands or the conduit? And is that decision being made yet?
So the solicitation that I mentioned a minute ago for a commercialization partner, there are firms that specialize in this kind of activity, and the state will be be issuing an RFP for a firm to help us, determine things like rates and things of that nature. So not determined yet, but certainly on the to-do list.
Okay, that's interesting. And then one final question. Is there been thought about how to design these middle mile networks for redundancy in case, one segment goes down? Is there a redundancy design in the works or for all of this?
There certainly is over time a desire to build redundancy into the system. There's also, though, the idea that, for example, if we can get all the state's middle mile fiber converged on an exchange point in Flagstaff, and then get APS's fiber in that same place, we can use other assets in the state to introduce redundancy to the network itself, right? So I don't think the state necessarily needs to build a perfectly, completely redundant system, because there are fiber in the ecosystem that can be used to build redundant networks. So kind of yes and no.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, if some sort of ring architecture concept to all of this in the future.
Yeah, that's certainly the desire, and maybe we'll trade and swap for fiber, on certain highways to get a ring built, or I think exchange points and leveraging what others have in the ecosystem makes a lot of sense as well.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for the clarifications.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so moving on, want to make sure we have plenty of time for our presentation. But Cindy, you got lots of stuff happening. Want to give us an update on the conference you attended and the Digital Inclusion Network and all that kind of good stuff?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Let's see. So, yeah, I went to the annual Digital Inclusion Conference in Portland last week, week before last. It was mind-blowing. Thanks to Janet Major and Karen Ziegler, who so graciously sponsored me to make that trip. I took horrible notes because the stimulus and information overload were incredible. I am amazed by people on this call who can take in all this information and then share it out. I can take it all in, but it gets jumbled, and so I may not cover everything. I've drafted a summary, and I already put it in the chat, just a simple summary. And I believe they have a transcript and videos of the conference because they live streamed it as well. So if I get those, I can share those out as well. Obviously, amazing work being done across the country. And just a reminder that none of us need to reinvent the wheel. NDIA is super interested in sharing out what they know and sharing solutions. So I got a lot of resources as I begin to compile it, and I may not have taken it all in, but I can put my finger on things. So if people have questions, they can always talk to me. One of the speakers was Andy Burke, who's with the NTIA. I got notes from that, and I put those in the chat also, so you can kind of see his response to some of the questions that NDIA was asking.
Cindy, can you tell people what NDIA is?
Oh, sure. It's the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. They are the advocacy organization. They are tight with the federal government. They testify frequently and provide comments for everything from the ACP to the IIJA, the BEAD stuff. They're on it, and are just a really neat organization to be. I think there's Drew Garner was also at that, Common Sense. And it was fun to bump into him there. It was an incredible time.
Okay, Drew, do you have anything you'd like to add? I believe you're online.
Yeah, it was great. there was a lot of people. It's been a long time since I've been around a bunch of people. But they will be making the videos available. Those in the coming weeks, I believe. The whole thing was streamed, and those videos will be available for free. Yeah, there are a couple subcommittee not subcommittee, but meetings that were good. That once those videos are released, I'll share those with the group. They were about a conversation with state broadband administrators, how they're using the federal funds, and then also about how to start and fund a local digital inclusion groups. I thought both of those groups were very insightful. So I'll share those links when I have them. Also, it was great to meet you, Cindy, and Nicole.
I think one of the biggest factoids that I brought away with me was in a session that it said lack of digital skills will cost the US $8.25 trillion by 2025. So digital skills training is lacking, and this is an economics issue. It's a poverty prevention issue. It's all of the things that that we talk about. So that just put a number on it, and it's frightening. So that's going to need to be a big focus, especially with the IIJA dollars.
You said 2.what trillion?
8.5 trillion by 2025.
8.5. Wow, thank you.
Okay, we need to move on. Cindy, so Cindy, you want to do a quickie about the network,
Yeah, I have
please?
a couple other things. The Digital Inclusion Network, we're starting to form underneath the AZBSN State Library Connect Arizona. Their website has been updated and includes the start of a statewide digital inclusion directory. And they also have very informative section on the ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program. We're talking about outreach for that at this point. We're holding meetings for practitioners on every other Thursday, and then we're hoping to start real soon, start another meetup space for discussion centered around digital inclusion generally, for people that are interested in that being the general discussion. And I did look up the statistics for ACP because people started signing up for that program at the start of January, and the first week it was 16,000 new signer-uppers, and by February 21st they're starting to be in the 200,000 range. So it's still making forward progress. And then just a reminder that Pima County is working on a strategic plan for digital access, inclusion, and adoption. Andrew Bevington and I are co-chairs of the Digital Inclusion Group. Steve is also on that committee, and we are working to increase digital literacy throughout Pima County, and we're getting a lot of good community input. That's all.
And Cindy, you've been doing a great job with that committee.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, we need to move on. But Cindy, maybe you and Drew, I'm sure there's some other key themes that may have come out, some of which we've probably been talking about for ages, but any other kind of, we don't have time to get into it today, but if there were any other themes that kind of emerged from that conference that you think we should have more discussion about, maybe we can do that.
Oh, today, right now?
No, not today.
Okay.
We don't have time today. We got a presentation, but maybe at a future meeting. And of course, you're having the network group also. But I think it'd be helpful to know about any major themes that have come out of that.
Okay, real good.
Great, thanks. And just quickly, Rory, I believe you're online. You want to? I know Wes is gone. Anything on the Final Mile project? And Derek, maybe you have some insight into that also.
No, it's rolling along. We expect to light Pima this week or on the 4th. So I guess a week from today. Holbrook's getting new towers and still two areas we have to put towers up. We're waiting for some engineering to come back on one of them, but they should all be operational in the next between 30 and 60 days. So we're having a little equipment shortage issues, but that's normal when you're dealing with the kind of some of the state of the art stuff that we got on this project. So.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to our presentation so we don't run out of time. And I'm very pleased to welcome, is it EJ or EJ? How do you pronounce it?
Yeah, it's EJ.
EJ. So I
Yeah,
wanted to
just-
make sure I got that correctly. And if you have anything to share, I'll stop sharing and let you share whatever you might want. But I was very pleased that EJ reached out to us. Somebody had forwarded our notice to him. And I'm really glad because we've been trying to connect with the ASU, American Indian Policy Institute, and the great work that they've been doing. So I'm going to turn it over to EJ. He's the research and policy analyst. And I believe you have at least one of your people also. H, I believe you're online also.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to go through just a quick couple of slides here.
Okay, so let me stop sharing and there you go.
Okay. All right. Are you all able to see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, good morning again, everyone. My name is EJ John. I am the research and policy analyst for the American Indian Policy Institute. We call it AIPI for short, and we've been around since 2012, I think it was. And it's, as a research institute, we focus on a lot of different Native American issues, whether that's, we've looked into census data in the past, we've done some studies on that. We've also looked at some issues such as voting rights and looking at like things like access to water, looking at things having to do with land status, and just, you know, the entire kind of group of issues that faces tribal communities, not only here in Arizona, but also nationally. But in the last couple of years, one of our specialties has been looking at telecommunications and just access to internet as well as phone service, but now it's more focused on internet, broadband internet. So we've been doing a lot of work to try and provide some information, some data, and just to provide some national organizations such as the National Congress of American Indians and NDIA with some insight into broadband connectivity on tribal lands. So as you can see, our work is mostly made up of three areas, which is policy, trying to create policy recommendations and inform policymakers. Another part of it is capacity building. Capacity building, we've really focused a lot on more of the economic development, kind of community development skills for tribal staff and tribal leaders. But we are starting to branch into some capacity building for broadband kind of digital skills related things, and as well as research, looking at different initiatives to inform our policy making and to provide for people when they're crafting these programs, when they're looking for comments and input into these programs for tribal communities. So for policy, that's kind of my main area at AIPI. And so a lot of my work includes coming up with different kinds of policy articles that focus on different issues. Over the last couple months, I have been writing a lot of kind of summaries and information materials for a lot of the different grant programs that are available for tribes. Same thing with legislation analysis. We did some analysis on the broadband provisions of the IIJA. We've also been putting together a broadband dashboard on our website. And what we've been doing with that is trying to put all of the different tribal broadband resources on one page. Everything that includes kind of like the federal grant pages, the federal application pages, and a lot of the information that's out there. We tried to put that on one page for people to go to. And then we also just do policy updates in general to look at a lot of different laws and regulations from the federal level that affect tribes. On our research side, we've been working on projects having to do with mapping to make sure that tribal communities are included in these different mapping initiatives to make sure that that data is accurate. We've also been working to contribute to book chapters on tribal wireless. We've done a study on a tribal wireless bootcamp that took place a few months ago. And then we're also working on submitting different journal articles for planning, specifically planning for tribal communities, as well as federal data tracking. Another big part of our capacity building is we started this Indigenous Leadership Academy. This is something that doesn't specifically have anything to do with broadband, but it's something that we started for emerging tribal leaders. So they take a several-week course to learn basic leadership skills and to kind of build their network, their tribal leadership network here in Arizona. So we connect them with a lot of different resources. And some of it does include project planning and how to kind of build their knowledge on digital equity and broadband connectivity for their communities too. So that's in progress right now. I believe we're in the 4th week of that program. And here's just a quick slide with all of our contact info. AIPI, our director is Dr. Tracy Morris. Some of you may have met her before. She's been a leader in tribal broadband connectivity for tribal communities in Indian country. Myself, I'm the research and policy analyst. I've been with AIPI for about a year now, so I'm still kind of learning my way around Arizona specifically. I just moved here a year ago as well, so getting to know the state and the area. I'm originally from New Mexico, so Kristen Talbert, she runs our leadership program. H, who I believe is on the line, listening in. H handles all of our research and coordinates all of the different research projects we have going on, as well as Sadie. She is one of our research analysts and does a lot of the data gathering and data analysis. And Beth is our communications coordinator. So we're a small office, but we've been doing a lot lately, and we've been doing a lot with broadband. So we are definitely expanding to try and meet all of the different broadband connectivity needs that tribes have that we can assist with. We really want to, right now at this stage, we really want to be able to help tribes disseminate a lot of the information that's coming down from the federal level. We want to be able to connect them with the different assistance and services they're looking out for. And we want to be able to also provide information for entities who want to focus on tribal connectivity. So those are kind of the 3 areas we're looking to expand. And I don't believe we've worked a ton with any kind of state entities in the last year or so, just because we've been so busy with a lot of our national efforts. But I know that's something we definitely want to get into, and it's something that, for myself at least, I definitely want to talk to more of you stake folks and to make sure that we are able to provide as much information as possible to our tribal partners. So besides that, I think that's all I have for now, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you, EJ. So a couple of quick things. H, you're online. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
I would just love to add that we, love when people sign up for our newsletter and follow our blog, because that has all of the latest information. And then EJ and I are always writing reports and policy briefs. So it's been very busy over the last year.
So we don't really have time to get into it today, but I know when EJ and I spoke previously, that trying to get a perspective on what is happening with the tribes here in Arizona, and of course they do have a national presence also. And again, we don't have time for that today, but I think it would be useful to get a good snapshot, EJ, H, whoever, about what exactly it really is happening for the tribes.
Yeah, of course, definitely. And you can get some of that insight on our website. Like H mentioned, we have been writing a lot of some reports to analyze some of the funding programs, as well as our newsletter has some of that information, and our blog also has some posts about that as well, just kind of going over a lot of the developments over the last year. So if you have some time, yeah, please check it out, and you might be able to find something useful on there.
So obviously, if you're trying to do some work with the tribes, that this is a great resource for you to take advantage of, find out what's going on and who's doing who to what and so forth. Any questions for EJ? Going once, going twice. Okay, EJ, if you could stop sharing, I'd appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
So we're, EJ, could you send me your presentation also, please?
Yeah, I can do that.
I'd appreciate it. So anybody have anything else, any other announcements that they'd like to share before we end the meeting today? Going once.
Yeah, this is Mark. Jeff wasn't here to report, and I did have a clarification question for him, but he posted on LinkedIn that the state of Arizona did not win an NTIA infrastructure grant that was applied for, I believe, last August. And the NTIA has only announced 277 million in awards of the 980 million in that program. So I was left uncertain whether Arizona actually, our grant was rejected or still awaiting the opportunity in the other 70% of that money. Derek, do you know that?
I don't, Mark.
Yeah, so there had been a post from Jeff. I'm sure he would have talked about that, or I would have prompted him to if he was here. So don't really know the answer to that. I'm hoping that we simply didn't make the first round of awards and that we're still in the game.
As am I.
And Fernando, you have your hand up. Do you still have a question or comment?
I just had a comment. I want to tell EJ thank you for the work he's doing, recognizing the lack of broadband to Native American communities. I have been installing and repairing fiber optic lines, DSL lines for 25 years. And this pandemic did expose gaps in broadband, and especially on the Native American communities, the lack of internet access. So a lot of the people fell behind as far as schooling and telemed. So I encourage EJ to continue to do the work he's doing. It is crucial, it's important, and to reach out to the communities, because there are still some out there that are not aware of some of the federal grant programs to provide internet access.
Okay. Any other questions or comments before we end for today? Any other announcements? Again, we invite you to stay online to Kibitz if you've got the time. And if not, we're done for today. I'm going to stop the recording, and